To all God-loving Americans out there, good afternoon. I'll just wait a couple seconds, see who can join me. I know it's been a while. Going to wait for the audience to build up. There's a lot of things that have been going on in my head. I've been doing things behind the scenes. So I want to say thank you for those that support me. With respects to Facebook, reason why I haven't done too many live streams is because of Facebook. After the trying to interview Harry Reid at his house, Facebook blocked me. So they blocked me since the time I was in Vegas, in Portland, or actually in Vegas, Nevada. So I want to apologize to those that support me. That the reason why I couldn't live stream is because of Facebook. So we can say thank you to Facebook for trying to hinder me from bringing out the truth. Now, for those that are currently right now listening to me, there are hyperlinks that I posted on this video that you can actually go one-on-one and read for yourself. Start opening them up and save them in PDF files. I've already saved the entire information has been saved in PDF files. The hyperlinks have been saved. Everything, every article there has been saved. To the people in Harney and Grant County and to our military and the militia, I want to articulate this as best as possible. All the people that are connected to Uranium 1, Calico Resource, which is Barrick Gold Inc., Iron Triangle, Boyd Britton Welding, and additional corporations that I posted there with George Soros, all connected. The reason why I have to go in this route is because I have to bring the players within the local community, the players that took an oath of office that betrayed the people of Harney County and Grant County and the rest of Oregon, but also affecting or impacting the national security of our country and endangering obviously our military, our children, our grandchildren, all for their personal and financial gain. So why I continue to come out is for the fact that reading the wrongful death lawsuit that was filed by the Finnegans and other members of the Patriot community, they left out certain names within this lawsuit, and I want to bring these individuals in. And why I have to bring these individuals in is because I want to tie it all through the local level and also with the Endangered Species Act, with Karen Suckling, the ties with Karen Suckling, all through the Lewis and Clark Law School. So if you understand what Lewis and Clark Law School is about, you'll understand that most of these people that I am mentioning directly or indirectly attended and graduated from Lewis and Clark Law School, but also tied to the American Bar Association. Now, saying that and putting that to the side, I'm going to mention a couple names. For those people in Harney and Grant County that know these names, I'm going to basically dedicate this video to them in the memory of Robert Lavoie Finnegan, Mark Webb, Steve Beverlin, Boyd Britton, Cliff Bentz, Andy Bentz, who else? Les Zates, Scotta Callister, Lyndon Zates, Maxine, I forgot Maxine's last name, all on through the Operation Mockingbird. That their hands through the Oregonian, the Blue Mountain Eagle, Malheur Enterprise. So there's no secret. And let's not forget Marissa Williams tied to King Williams. The Williams is also connected to this. King Williams and Zach Williams. Let's bring on this name, Susan Lane Brown, or Susan Jane Brown. Let me clarify. Susan Lane Brown. She's an attorney for the environmentalist and basically is in bed with Malheur Timber. And if you see who the people are in bed with Malheur Timber, you'll understand the criminals like Stephen E. Grassley and Boyd Britton, Dan Nichols and Pete Reynolds, all in bed with Malheur Timber or Malheur Lumber, however you want to pronounce it. These criminals are also in bed because they had a financial gain with respect to the assassination of Robert Lavoie Finnegan. But most of all, these criminals knew where was the perfect place to assassinate not just Robert Lavoie Finnegan, but try to assassinate everyone that was directly with the Patriot community. Now, why this Susan Jane Brown is so important or so vital to this is because her ties with Brett Brownscombe, and I'll pronounce his last name, Brownscombe. That's Brett Brownscombe. He is part of the Endangered Species Act, but most of all served with Kate Brown in the Executive Order 1518 with respect to the sage grouse. Why this is so important? Because it ties back to the Hammond property. Also, in this Executive Order 1518, Stephen E. Grassley also participated in the sage grouse. In addition, with Cliff Bentz under House Resolution Bill 3334. Now, remember, we're going Endangered Species Act now. The Endangered Species also ties Brett Brownscombe is tied with the Endangered Species Act, also tied with the Office of Kate Brown, which explains why he emailed to Kate Brown, the governor Kate Brown, or the corrupt governor Kate Brown, to assassinate Robert Lavoie Finnegan. Now, I gotta bring this guy, Brett Brownscombe, to attention because he is part of another member of the Lewis and Clark Law School. This criminal right here, a member of the Lewis and Clark Law School. Now I'm gonna read what he participated, his titles. He was a senior project manager at the National Policy Sensor Center. He was also a National Resource Policy Advisor on the Oregon Governor Kate Brown. Also behind Calico Resource and Barrick Gold Inc. merging. And if you go to Vail, Oregon, you understand this criminal is behind the minings that are going currently with Calico Resource in Vail. So if he's all about the endangered species, including not just the sage grouse, but the endangered wolf, well, why is he in bed with Calico Resource? What is his motive? For 1 minute, he's part of the endangered species with Karen Suckling and Susan Jane Brown, and yet he goes and ties with all these criminals for the mining purposes, including Uranium One and Calico Resource, obviously. Also, he was a deputy director, an interim at the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And who was he tied with in the Department of Fish and Wildlife? Any guess? Chad Cargis and Rhonda Cargis. And those people in the local community who understand Rhonda Cargis and Chad Cargis and who they are, well, you'll understand how this criminal, Brett Brownscombe, is in bed with these two. Remember, he was a deputy director intern for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. Let's continue back in now April of 2011. He was a National Resource Policy Advisor under John Kidsapper. So to the people that know John Kidsapper, this criminal with Ted Ferrioli, with Greg Walden, with Stephen E. Grassley, Jeff Merkley, and Greg Walden went after John Kidsapper. And if John Kidsapper and his staff want to get a hold of me with respects to the research that's been conducted and has been put in chronological order to demonstrate these criminals went after him, I can show you the evidence. Let the evidence speak for itself. But most of all, if you follow the money, you will seek the truth. So this is to John Kidsapper. You had traitors within your staff, and this criminal was one of them. So if you're out there and you're listening, and those that are able to get a hold of John Kidsapper, please get a hold of me, because I can show you the entire layout. Matter of fact, John Kidsapper wanted to give the lands back to the people. And who prevented that? This criminal, Brett Brownscombe, right here, with Ron Wyden, with Jeff Merkley, with Greg Walden, with Ted Ferrioli, with Susan Jane Brown, and others. And I can easily bring this to in a forum, in any public debate. So let's continue on. He's a conservative director of the Freshwater Trust. So anybody that understands Freshwater Trust, you remember when I said back about they wanting the water, the land, and the minerals, but the water is more important? Why do you think the water is so important? But most of all, why are they trading water through Wall Street? I said that a while back in several of my videos. This is why I am bringing this criminal out. He also, as I stated earlier, a graduate from the Lewis and Clark Law School. This is his autobiography. This is what he posted. This is what I've been following and researching the entire time. Who he is connected. Lewis and Clark Law School. Who graduated from Lewis and Clark Law School? Did Anna Akins graduate from Lewis and Clark Law School, appointed by Bill Clinton? What about Anna J. Brown, another Lewis and Clark Law School, appointed by Bill Clinton? What about Sally Amanda Marshall, Lewis and Clark? What about Stacy Beckerman, a Lewis and Law School, or Lewis and Clark Law School? Let me continue. Ron Wyden, is he part of the Lewis and Clark Law School? What about Jeff Merkley? He's part of the Lewis and Clark Law School. Earl Blumenauer, part of the Lewis and Clark Law School. I know I'm missing a lot of names. Greg Walden, part of the Lewis and Clark School. So all these people, part of the Lewis and Clark Law School, that are all well embedded and all part of law, which is what? Land, water, and air. And in order for them to steal that, they got to go and attend TRT, which is a technical review team under Measurement 37 to steal the resources. To steal the resources from the Oregonians, from the people, and at the same time, aiding and abetting our enemies with uranium. So this is where the collusion is coming in. So why did Brett Brownscrum on an email? So this is the email. Why did he have to communicate with other individuals with respect to the area and where to assassinate Robert Lavoie Finnegan and the others? But he's not the only conspirator, because we know Ron Wyden was a part of it with Kate Brown, with James Comey, with Robert Mueller, with Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, Uranium One, John Podesta, George Soros, Barack Hussein Obama. And if I didn't mention Robert Mueller, let me go mention him again. Robert Mueller. Basically, these highlights right here are basically the points of the email with respect to certain individuals. And this email, in which Brett Brownscrum, on behalf of the Governor Kate Brown and to Commissioner Boyd Britton, remember Boyd Britton Welding, he was also part of the assassination of Robert Lavoie Finnegan, in which his name was also left out. There is a lot of open road travel between Harney and Grant County. Doesn't it seem like an opportunity for law enforcement to stop the occupiers on their way and make some arrests? If the local sheriff in Grant County refuses to enforce the law, who has the authority to assert jurisdiction, take over control from the local sheriff, and would the State Department assume local enforcement roles? Well, who did they call? They called the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. The same FBI criminals, James Comey, Robert Mueller, Greg Brensing, that brought the FBI, or so-called mercenaries, to assassinate Robert Lavoie Finnegan and the political prisoners. This is a tie that is huge. This tie goes deep, because if you go back, and this is what I want, look at HB. It's a House Bill 440, in respects to the endangered species, with Brett Brownscrum. But the most important thing here with Brett Brownscrum and the Endangered Species Act, in which Kate Brown participated. I apologize for those that cannot see me. Those in this Endangered Species Act, in this executive order by Kate Brown, you'll see the name Brett Brownscrum. And as I stated right there, Brett Brownscrum, his last name is spelled Browncscombe. Brett Brownscrum. Brett Brownscrum is tied to Tony Savagar. And I'm going to pronounce his last name is Tony, and last name is Svegcar. He's an agricultural research service. But what nobody understands is that Tony Savagar was appointed by Stephen E. Grassi to run the hospital in which Robert Lavoie's body was taken. But in addition, he was also there when the 3 dead nurses occurred in the same hospital that it was tied to Robert Lavoie Finnecane, or so-called the last 3 people that saw the body of Robert Lavoie Finnecane. Now, Tony Cigar also donated several or made multiple donations to Stephen E. Grassie's campaign contribution for Stephen E. Grassie to get so-called reelected. Why was it so-called reelected? Because I believe fraud was made during his reelection. Tony Cigar, if you look at it and you go to the hospital's website, he was appointed by Stephen E. Grassie and running the hospitals. So do you see that connection between Tony Cigar, Brett Branscombe to Kate Brown with Stephen E. Grassie? And Stephen E. Grassie was also part of the executive order in which I stated earlier today on Executive Order 1518. Right there, his name, Stephen E. Grassie. That's his name. And who else was in this? Stacey Davies. Stacey Davies with Dan Jordan and Stephen E. Grassie made a fraudulent land exchange. And who was the attorney? Susan Jane Lane, or Susan Jane Brown, or Lane Brown, or Jane Brown. She was part of this criminal fraudulent land exchange, and she's a lawyer. And then, let's not forget, John Southern from the Bureau of Land Management also participating in his Executive Order 1518. So if you see the connection between this executive order, the email with respect to with Boyd Britton and Brett Branscombe, and were to assassinate Robert Lavoie Finnecane, there is your conspiracy. And why they had to go after Robert Lavoie Finnecane. And look at the ties of every corporation. You got Iron Triangle, you have Malheur Lumber, you have Uranium One, you have Calico Resource, and then let's not forget, you got the Oregonian, the Blue Mountain Eagle, and the Malheur Enterprise. And who are they connected to? Les Zates, Scott Callister, Lyndon Zates, Marissa Williams, affiliated, married to, or related to King Williams and Zach Williams. And under Blue Mountain Eagle, what do they try to cover up? The restoration, the Blue Restoration Forestry. And who got stewardship money? King Williams, Boyd Britton, Zach Williams, and the cover-up continues through the infiltration of the local media. So when the people in Harney and Grant County or anywhere in Oregon ever got the facts, or the facts were skewed, look into those criminals, because they had a financial gain, a financial motive to bring this to an end. Any means necessary, including assassination. Now you have everything well connected. In addition, as I stated back in my previous letters, Governor Kate Brown's letter to Barack Hussein Obama, to James Comey, and Loretta Lynch. And as WikiLeaks released, it all ties back to the uranium. And all the hyperlinks that I posted on this video will collaborate this email right here in the conspiracy with respects to the assassination of Robert Lavoie Finnecane, including Mark Webb, or former Judge Mark Webb. And by the way, Boyd Britton, we know you're leaving Grant County. And there's a reason why you're leaving Grant County. You can run, but you can't hide, my brother. I promise you that much. You're not going to hide. We know your intentions. We know what you want to do. And Gillespie, we also know what you did. So you're not too far with the mix. All right? Former Sheriff Gillespie from Harney County, you're just as corrupt as these individuals. And I guess you have a nice vacation in New York, but not too fast. Your day will be coming. Now, so in the local area, so in the local, you had Stacey Davies, Dan Jordan, obviously, as I stated, Les Zates, Scott Callister, Marissa Williams, King Williams, Zach Williams, Boyd Britton, Cliff Bentz, Andy Bentz. Remember, let's not forget about Andy Bentz with respect to giving the uranium, or aiding and abetting with Uranium One and Calico Resource. extracting the minerals. Former Sheriff Andy Bentz, related to Cliff Bentz, in which he was also affiliated in Sage Grouse and House Bill 334 with Stephen E. Grasty. This is why he also participated in the assassination of Robert Lavoy Finnegan, either directly or indirectly. But I guarantee you he gave his opinion. Who else is in this? Susan Jane Brown, another one that needs to be brought. Oh, by the way, Susan Jane Brown and with Chad Cargis and Rhonda Cargis, that name right there, and part of the Endangered Species Act, the Environmental Center of Biological Diversity. Well, let's not forget who also was tied to the Center of Biological Diversity. Anna Akins? Oh yeah, corrupt Judge Anna Akins that was tied to, oh, that's right. Her two sons all tied to Susan Jane Brown. So we're going to put this together so you can see how it culminated to the assassination of Robert Lavoy Finnegan. The hyperlinks are for the American people. The hyperlinks and the information is for you, America, because these criminals put our national security and our military and our children in danger by arming in the aiding and abetting of our enemies with uranium, U-235 and U-238, but most of all giving Soros most of our gold, silver, and copper. Follow George Soros because George Soros made the Calico Resource merge with Barrick Gold Inc., in which he had a huge financial interest and made a huge financial gain behind this merger. This is why this is so important. So to our military, when you go overseas and you're fighting for freedom, you're no longer fighting for freedom. You're fighting for this criminal. All right. So now that we got people in the local level, and I named most of the people in the local level to the best of my abilities, to the people of Grant County and Harney County, these criminals defrauded you. To the people, to the ranchers and the Native Americans that went in front of Mark Webb with respect to your land, water, and minerals, I advise you to go back and go after these criminals for fraud. But don't sue them in their capacity as a judge or as an officer of the court. Sue them in a personal capacity and seize all their assets with respect to the fraud they perpetrate upon the American people. And fraud has no statute of limitations. And not just Mark Webb, but Stephen E. Grasty. You sue them in a personal capacity for fraudulently occupying the oath of office. Because that's what they did. Including Dan Nichols and Pete Reynolds. Now that we have that established with Mark Webb and how Mark Webb played his role, and the hyperlinks, and you read the hyperlinks, you'll see how embedded he is with Boyd Britton, and Stephen E. Grasty, and Dan Nichols, and Pete Reynolds, and Ron Wyden, and Greg Walden, and Ted Ferrioli. Now, with respect to Ted Ferrioli, also part of going after John Kitzhaber, also his wife, Mary Ferrioli. How Mary Ferrioli comes into Harney County, she is a county recorder of Harney County, or the clerk of the court of Harney County. So when the time came with respects to destroying the evidence, who was there, either directly or indirectly, allowed the obstruction of justice of the evidence? Because she participated in this obstruction of justice, either directly or indirectly. If she knew, she is directly also, she should also be charged for the crime. Now that we got Mary Ferrioli and Ted Ferrioli out of the way, also the connection with Malheur Lumber and part of the stewardship, which they also had the ability to go after Robert Lavoy Finnegan and the political prisoners. So this also ties, because not just Ted Ferrioli as a state representative, because remember, Ted Ferrioli was a state representative that went after John Kitzhaber, but he also went after the ranchers and the Native Americans. With respects to the Paiutes, your your organization, whatever you want to call it, has been infiltrated. You got criminals running your organization, no longer looking out for your best interest. So, how you guys are going to take care of that, it's up to you. I can't tell you, but I tell you this much. If you follow the money, you will seek the truth. And for those Paiutes that are in poverty, I ask you, why are you living in poverty? And why certain Native Americans are richer than others, if you guys are supposed to be equal across the board. I apologize for those that say that I'm freezing. It's not me. Obviously, it's Facebook, and it's not my communication. So Facebook is definitely, once again, doing what it does best, prevent me from speaking the truth. All I can say is for those individuals, after I am done, this video will be uploaded, this video will be saved, and this video will be circulated. Now, that I established the people in the local level, within the middle level, and then you got Washington, D.C., with James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Robert Mueller, Greg Brensing, Daniel P. Love, Neil Krones. All these criminals need to also be held accountable for Robert Lavoie Finnegan, including the individuals that pulled the trigger. If they're Americans or mercenaries, they have to be held accountable for their crimes, for the assassination and the murder of Robert Lavoie Finnegan. All they were doing was protecting the Hammonds. And if you go back to 2010, the Harney Comprehensive, you will see how they mention the Hammonds property, or the Hammond Ranch, in the Harney County Comprehensive, and also stating the sage grouse, using the sage grouse as an endangered species. This is how the whole thing escalated. And this is why the Bundys went to go help the Hammonds, including Robert Lavoie Finnegan, Daryl Thorne, John Ritzheimer. God, there's so many names. Jake Ryan. I mean, so many names that and I feel bad. I don't know them all. But at the end of the day, what these people did for the Hammonds was just to prevent these criminals from stealing what doesn't belong to them, or sell what doesn't belong to them. So now that you guys have basically a great picture, a great understanding, what I've been saying almost 2.5 years ago, I am bringing it back, and now I'm putting more information, and I am putting Brett Kronzman's email, in which was sent to me, with all the other information that I already had. This is the smoking gun. It can't get any better. It can't get any clearer. And the conspiracy has been tied. And the purpose and the motive behind the conspiracy. So, anybody has any questions, right now is the perfect time. I don't know if I'll be able to do another live stream video, because as I stated earlier, after I went to Harry Reid's house, ever since that time, I've been prevented from Facebook from live streaming. So, to the people in Grant County and Harney County, you know, my prayers are out to you, to the Finnegans, to the Bundys, to all the political prisoners. My heart goes out to you. To our children, to our nation, to our military. I mean, the atrocity that's going around our country and around the world, because of the expense of these criminals, is insane, is ludicrous. And how can we sit back and not say anything? How much more we Americans are going to allow these criminals to run not just our government, but our learning institutions? When are we going to take over our learning institutions? When are we going to rise? It's up to you, America. When are we going to defund Uranium One? When are we going to defund Barrick Gold Inc., Calico Resource, the Center of Biological Diversity, Endangered Species Act? When are we going to defund all these programs? The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the EPA, DEQ, Department of We got to defund these, or ABC, corrupt government agencies. They no longer look at the best interest of the American people. They are looking out